Hi, everybody. We have a few questions tonight, mainly from the UK, and one from Betty Toslin, uh, and she asked a question about a really important part of our relationship with growth, which is very seldom talked about in many of the pages that we have ever read and research that we've done, but an extremely important uh, thing that is vital to know about because of our sometimes misunderstood way of engaging with higher states. Um, I'll read kind of a little part of the question here, Betty. I hope you're listening. She says she's been a bit disappointed lately that her beautiful colors and have seemed to disappear that she saw within her mind. Um, and she's not feeling the energies as much. Also, my meditations are kind of rubbishy. Um, and I'd like to talk a tiny bit about this because this is something that happens to most folks who are internally engaging with what we call spiritual development. Um, there's a dilemma that is fairly consistent across the board, whereby an individual becomes more spiritual when they're doing things spiritual. I have no problem with that whatsoever, and I don't imagine anybody else does. However, what begins to happen is that there's a constructed zone that we call personality, and that personality is usually developed for the purpose of engaging with life, uh, defending against things we need to defend against, surviving those things that we need to survive in life. Not always comfortable, of course. And we also see through this rubric, this way of engaging with life, our versioning of what a personality has to be valued in our world. It also includes the realm of spiritual development. So if you have some symptoms of spiritual development, you then become more spiritual than others who don't have the symptoms. Well, I'd like you to entertain a concept. You can try it if you like. I'd ask you to get 3 glasses out of your repertoire of glasses. And not these kinds of glasses, but drinking glasses. And one about the size of an ordinary shot glass, which I vaguely remember from years ago. Then a normal small glass that you might have in your, for juices and whatever. And the third one, a larger, maybe an 8-ounce glass, something like that. You can keep going with these holders of liquid or flowers or barrels or whatever. It just doesn't matter. I'm just trying to give you a bit of an example of how you might understand something. So you have this shot glass, and the personality is the shot glass, and it's magnified because it's capable of handling a little bit of energy from the root, gonad, solar plexus, through the chest, maybe the throat, maybe into the brow, perhaps even into the crown center. This is not something that You don't know. Theosophy talks about this stuff. Casey talks about this stuff. Krishnamurti people talk about this stuff to some degree. Almost everyone, Hindus, Buddhists, Islamic folk relate kind of to the Hebrew orientation. Christianity doesn't talk a lot about it, but they talk about the heart and they talk about the crown center. Okay, all right. Let's go back to the glasses. Fill the shot glass up, right to the brim. Is it full? Okay. In your imagination, throw the shot glass into the small vehicle, the smaller glass, a little bit bigger juice glass, and you'll notice that the container, the water or the liquid in the container, roughly, with all those centers touching, is near the bottom of the juice glass. Big juice glass. Let's make it a big juice glass. Which means the personality structure, used to being involved with all that juice in the shot glass, about this high, is now fundamentally involved with the personality that is still related directly to understanding based on the shot glass. Excuse me while Marlene tries to do something I'm not sure of.
Okay, continue. The sound is being funny.
So, now that you have a little bit of liquid in a personality that's still reminiscent of the shot glass, because that's your personality, now the personality becomes involved with the energy image that is the size of the juice glass. In other words, the personality has to expand its horizons beyond what it could before. Often people do this by reading more information that is basically extensions of what's already known in the shot glass, but that's good. Nothing wrong with that. However, what happens is that the personality itself is energy. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's mental. But it's energy. So it's still using the energy in the juice glass. A little bit more energy is starting to come into the personality through the chakras, Zephyrat, than you had before in the shot glass personality. It extends and expands itself somewhat, and your perfect reflex, based on survival, automatically moves towards defense against increased flow of energy from a higher state coming in to expand the personal, which you're not used to dealing with, to the point, and it's physical, emotional, and mental, remember, to the point where you can begin to have more energy come in to the juice glass and begin its slow rise, or, looking at it from another point of view, begin the relationship that the chakras have, Sephiroth, have, with allowing energy to move through them and coagulate, construct another personality form, broadening out perspectives, and every now and then not necessarily perfectly agreeing with what was in the shot glass. So the construction of another vehicle is occurring. Based on our traditional way on these levels of engaging with life, let's make these shot glasses so glassy, invisible, that it is reminiscent of our not necessarily perceiving all the aspects of our personality that are there to be noticed, perhaps by us. One could say we have a lot of unconscious reflexes that are quite normal in the survival of a personality here on these planes. That is not negative at all. That is really valuable. However, along with an increase in energy coming in, the energy also goes to an increase in perception of the actual shot glass. Or, saying it a different way, it goes in the direction of a conscious awareness that slowly begins to see how we are engaging in life. This is fundamentally not so easy for us. It's much better if we don't know how we're interacting with others and ourselves. Less hassle. We just take it for granted that we know exactly how we should function, and to heck with everybody else. Now, I remember saying that the shot glass shifts a bit as more energy, the shot glass energy, is moved into a broader perspective. That means there is going to be an adjustment, ultimately, in the construction of a personality's awareness, perception, because you count on perception for survival. You count on perception and legitimately an understanding of how you function for that is involved with the repertoire that you have that relates to engaging with others or engaging with yourself. And of course, higher states. Sometimes we misunderstand and we would like the shot glass to become thicker and more functionally spiritual and remain the same as we were before. Actually, it doesn't work like that. Based on information, if you read it, you will notice that there are changes internally of individuals who have become willing to allow really big part of our engagement, willing to allow ourselves to slightly become more aware of how we function. As soon as you do that, energy moves to that. Remember, energy follows thought. Energy follows emotion, increased energy. Energy follows a relationship with broadening out how you see the world, makes it broader. Makes it broader how? Makes it broader because your awareness has broadened, therefore it broadens your awareness. You have more information to work with, more questions to ask, more respect for the inability that you have for not understanding. Because if you don't understand something, you have no respect for that. You become more respectful. And that leads to a level of humility that we do not understand very well. We don't become diminished as much as we do in the shot glass. We become more respectful because we want to improve our understanding, broaden out our capability to be able to notice and relate to, and be kind within as well as without, so that we can go beyond this barrier that we have. In Theosophy, they sometimes call it a ring pass me not. It's a barrier. that holds us in a position to maintain the shot glass form. Now, one could say, is that negative? Absolutely not. But maybe the timing might be close to allow one to reconsider, at any age, by the way, 105 if that's what it is, 25 if that's what it is. There are beings who are coming in the early ages, and they're functionally able, and unfortunately sometimes caught up in the superiority of our individuality in relationship to this planet. This is natural for us. We do that because we're so insecure. Our insecurity has to feel our relationship with caring and broadening out that insecurity. Insecurity can work for us. Kindness can work for us. We can broaden our willingness to go beyond a set way of understanding things. This is very difficult for us. But now we're in the second glass. And we have begun to shape the glass broader. The holder. The form that is already constructed. Physically. Physical personality orientations. The way we think, we have to move habitually. The emotions that we are involved with. The respect that we need to be okay with others, speaking words of wisdom, as well as okay with us listening to them, and us not only defending our own relationship with how we are. This is very difficult. I'd ask everybody to raise their hands who are listening if they've ever had difficulty hearing something that is hard to hear. I'd have to raise both my hands. As many I know who really care would have to raise their hands too. Not because they're proud of it, because they know within their own hearts the great difficulty that occurs when you're called upon to move into the second class, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or beyond. Somehow, you have to have a relationship with you where what you do and are capable of are noticed by you, and acknowledge that at times you will not know that you need to go beyond where you are. And at times you will not want to. And at times you will ache to. And it has nothing to do with others, except that others can help. In the personal levels, others usually do not know when they are helping, but they have an attitude towards what you need. That's normal for us. You've done the same thing. They do the same thing. If you see it in them, you know it's in you. One of the most beautiful things that can occur is that the level of the water from the shot glass suddenly, slowly, makes an appearance. But this time, its appearance doesn't have anything to do with the personalization of the shot glass. You notice something occurring that has not occurred before. That's a symptom. It's broader than what you normally think, maybe broader than what you normally feel. And this, remember, is oscillating or vibrating in the physical personality structure that was the shot glass. So you sense it somehow. You can sense emotionally, mentally, physically. It's a strange kind of sensing in that second glass. Something makes an appearance in your area or zone of engagement with life, personality, core, based on your observations. You see something as if it's within you but external from you. At the same time, there's no separation in this thing. It's a movement towards oneness. As the energy rises through this vehicle that we are, no negativity about the vehicle, tiny little threads of things you haven't seen before make their appearance. Remember the shot glass? You react like the shot glass. You are still preserving the way you should be before, and that means you will be defensive. Natural, normal. That means you will judge. Natural, normal for the shot glass. Don't downplay the shot glass. It's helping you to see so that the construction of the second form can be developed. If you couldn't see it, won't allow yourself to see it, it means the shot glass is trying to defend its release, or non-release rather, from itself and the images that it's built in relationship to itself. It is normal. That is not negative, truly. It's what we all do. Higher states can perceive, one could say anticipate, but no, perceive what we may be able to do before we know we can. And I think that's a very important thing to know, because we're rather intense, another word for harsh, another word for anything that you would do based on the shot glass and its constructed system. You remember? If you haven't seen a shot glass, investigate. They're thicker. They don't, they hold a fluid that nobody wants to drop and lose because you pay money for it. So your constructed system remains extremely valuable to you. That's why the second glass maintains aspects of that shot glass. Here's the reason why. Because you will see through you and in you others. Your perception will be recognized through the vibrations in you that relate to others. This is a dilemma of the second shot glass. Second glass. Initially, the shot glass is still pretty strong. So, in a way, Betty, what I'm saying under these conditions is we have a vulnerability to losing clairvoyance and clair everything. But we maintain, as you said, a perception of energy. That perception, that energy is building the second glass. Broaden it out the best you can. It is not about you liking it. It's about you doing the best you can to broaden your relationship with how you think you are. I said it tonight. We were discussing a book, and I said, I'm not sure I would really enjoy that book. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it might be worth reading for me. It doesn't mean you have to do everything you don't want to do. That's not the point. That second glass is a very valuable glass because the first one is extremely important. The first one allows a constructed form that we call the personal to entertain a broadening before it occurs. We grow spiritually. Personalization is normal and comfortable for us. We become sensitive and insensitive to those things that are right versus wrong. We know what spirituality is in our shot glass. When the other glass is building, we are constantly in a process of moving forward, development. Not throwing away the shot glass. If you do, you're not here anymore. You're growing into a place where a different level of understanding can occur. Not throwing out the old understanding under any circumstance. Just not giving it the importance that it had before, because there are other stirrings mentally. The mind opens and you perceive things beyond what you could before. It's not called clair anything, unless it would be called clarity. But one factor involved with the clarity is that you will continue to form another glass. But you have the experience of constructing, or at least being in a movement of construction from the shot glass to the second juice glass. You begin to remember the cycles of development being extremely valuable. And how important it is not to negate other people's views related to their shot glass, their belief. Because within that construct, energies can come through emotionally, mentally, verbally. You may see and they cannot, because you're in the second shot glass. Your perception is allowed to get stronger. And it's not this versus that anymore. It's a development towards something you currently do not understand, but your movement is through perception, through the capacity to handle energy flowing through the physical, emotional, and mental systems for a purpose related to others, service beyond what we understand currently, through our experience, that is. But we have little pieces, little nudges of that very understanding at its beginnings. Because the core of our being relates, the energy that we make up our personality images with, is related to a higher state. We learn to use that initially, so we can begin to use our minds, not our mental facility only, our minds, our higher emotional states. Recognize the capability that a form at this level, at any of these glass levels, interacts with higher states in spite of what beliefs tell us, or may tell us. I've been at the burial site of quite a number of yogis who are from the ancient past, or old past, or whatever you want to call it. And their form is still glowing. They're not in it, but it was just energized by living in that second state. And if you go there, it will affect you. You may go there, someone may go there, and not even notice. The shot glass is strong. Belief is strong. And that is an important thing to have strong when you're in the denizens of the shot glass. Nothing is negative. What love the higher state has to allow us to use life to inquire within ourselves how we should act, how we should engage, how we can, how we cannot recognize and understand, and even investigate idealizations and find that you cannot be involved with idealizations because nobody can. To investigate and not succeed, and succeed, and have an intermittent engagement with almost any level of capacity that a shot glass can handle. To allow love to occur in us so we can use it and wield it like children. Tremendous love. Very hard not to try to correct your children. Very difficult. Such a level of kindness and generosity. If you consider the fact that anything and everything that you do is directed by you. So you can learn. So I can learn. So all of us can inquire deeper. And let the fluid of the first glass enter into the second development. In our world, I think, from my perspective, the energy flowing through us is extremely valuable because it is us in that kind of way, because we are using it. It is us we are creating, us we're engaging with. We do not know how to use it for the benefit of others very well. That is part of the journey of learning before we learn that we are a form through which higher states, beyond the shot glassy kind of thing, can enable others or help others to grow as we are growing. Don't negate, please, the cycles of inability using old maps, old remembrances, because perception is so much different in that second glass. Words are not used the same way to define what you see and what you don't see. The duality of movement, low states versus high states, becomes a weird combination, kind of fusion or union that goes beyond our relationship with how we think we are. I'm not even sure that we're ready for that yet. But that's the conundrum that everyone deals with in terms of themselves. Be okay with Betty, as we all have to be okay with whoever we are, the best we can, to continue the movement forward, even if it looks like a step backwards. It is not. Mind you, you have things to think about in terms of yourself when you think that way. Others will say, oh, if you lose it, you must have done something wrong. This is a typical thing that a kid would say. We're all children, because we're all learning. I hope that helps a little, Betty. It's a tough question, because the counterpart of that question is always, why should I have to lose my clairvoyance so I can grow spiritually? It's not about that. It isn't. It's about the small glass being so important that you can't enter into a place where you can receive something beyond what you already believe. Well, I know you know that, but not everyone knows that. And if they become superior because of it, as anyone would have a tendency to do, then you're working with superiority. You don't have anything to do with clairvoyance or anything else, or psychokinesis, or, all the books you might read in terms of parapsychology. Wow. Tremendous engagement with the shot glass. Can the shot glass provoke things to occur with the energy that is helping it to move into higher states? Absolutely. This is really something that I'm not sure we can handle as human beings yet. What do you want? Power? Or a link with a higher state? Do they have to be separate? That's the question. Can't I have my power and still be up there? If you have that power the way you think it needs to be, you're engaging with the broadening or the personalized version of a world personality. This is what a personality is. Yeah. Will you have power? Yes, you'll have more power to help others, perhaps. That's something that we're learning and understanding. Not something we're assuming, but we are assuming it. And we're making all kinds of images about how important people are who assume this. It can work that way. But linking up with a higher state, absolutely all the time, no matter what the result. Because it knows ultimately that it will be not only on the deep core inside, but on the outside, with you having an awareness. The you will know it is a part of the higher state. I wish you well, Betty. That might move into another question, but maybe not. There's another one from Lisa, and she says, my question refers to counseling clients. This is for all therapists and all human beings who are growing. You'll see what she asks. How do we ensure that someone's energy is not being transferred to the next client? And she says she switches her hands on before and does a basic setup. She's trying to build attending to higher states. And she washes her hands and wrists. Water is a very, very interesting helper. Because your attention also goes off the other person that you're involved with. This is really helpful. You realize that the link between the first glass and the second glass in Betty's question, or Betty's answer, is a link up to having all of your system and EYE. This is not discussed very much, but it's happening faster. It's quite interesting. Not supposed to happen for a long time, but apparently it's happening faster. Your perception internally. You perceive the energies flowing from another through you. You learn how to perceive energies coming from you to others. You are watching that occur and trying to do better with it from your perspective. Just trying to do what you can. Emotion, you perceive, you watch the sensor tell you about the emotion that's going on in another. Also you, because it's trained to do that in the shot glass. Thoughts may also transfer into the mind cavity you call your head or your mind. You can watch and perceive those thoughts. You wouldn't want to have all of the thoughts that go through another person's mind in your head, or all of the emotions, or necessarily the energies coming from the personality of another. But you all know that you get that stuff. You ever been around when someone is really happy? Not too hard to be happy. Angry? Not too hard to be angry. Learning how to slow it down. A very important piece. So she's asking what happens between one client and another. In fact, if she does what she does, washes her hands and her wrists especially, because if your hands are opening, your wrists will open. That's the throat center. Your hands are related to this center here, the big one in the face, engages with the brow, engages with the heart, engages with the solar plexus, root and gonad center, and will engage with the crown as well. So you've got some stuff moving all the way through. So you are learning how to perceive the second glass. Now Lisa can perceive somewhat into the second glass. So I'm suggesting you switch your mental focus to the image of the next person coming in. besides what you're doing, Lisa, and say their name over and over again a few times, 2 or 3 times. Doesn't take much. And then remember your engagement with them, just for a few seconds. I could also say reach out and see where they are, but of course, that would be nonsense, wouldn't it? Maybe not in the second class. I'm just reading here to see if I missed anything. Remember, even in therapists who are not involved with energy work at all, they have many times talked about transference and countertransference. You can read a little bit of Freud and a little bit of Jung if you want to, or you can read whoever talks about it, because it sneaks back in, because it actually, people begin to notice that it can occur. You can actually act like the last client you were involved with. Why? Because they're still inside of you. Think about this. This is very disturbing. Maybe not. But in any event, when you go home at night after a day of therapeutic work, you try to pull away before you leave from your clients, because they'll be fresh in your mind. Do the best you can with it. Because when you meet and engage with others at home, you're going to be meeting them with your clients inside energetically until you notice it and shift your emotion, shift the way you're thinking, and shift even the way your body is set up.
How do you do that?
You do that through knowing how you are. And you have to pay attention in the second class. It's a must. You blame nobody for it. You only know that you are an image maker. And be respectful of that. But you do not have to be in the image of your clients. For you to do that, you must allow yourself to pull back from the you that wants to be like them when you're with them, so you'll know them. This is not always so simple as you can hear, but nonetheless important in the world of the second class. In the world of the first class, you're not going to notice. You every now and then might notice you're acting strange, or you might say, well, it's not me that's doing this, it's somebody else. And whoever is close to you will get it, because you're still engaging with the first class as the primary core level of being for you. This is normal. It takes a while to perceive the cycle of you. In your relationship with developing the cycle of the second class, you have parts and pieces of you that will be you, and you have information about everyone who acts a little bit like you that they don't have. Meaning, it's knowledge, but also understanding. Also, if you comprehend the dilemma, a real road to compassion. How difficult was it for you to adjust anything within you? Do you want to blame the symptom? I didn't like that shot glass because it had a ring around it. Old shot glass? Used before, is it? No one else in the world acts like you? May not be true. Hope that helps, Lisa. We have another one from Ian Rimmer. And Ian, this is an interesting question. Unfortunately, when I printed it, I didn't print all the information. I have on the sides a whole list of things that I can get into. It sometimes happens on my computer, and I didn't notice it. He says, we've talked...
Do you want to get her off this?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. Marlene's given me something I can actually read.
You just have to find it.
In the meantime,
Here.
here it is. We've talked before about the three lower centers linking together to create an eye or a circle. In other words, a whole being of you, somewhat personalized, like the shot glass. There's an aura, pardon me, I'm using that word, energy fields around the shot glass. And you use those. They're caused through habitual engagement with life. Nothing negative, nothing wrong with this at all. This is just normal. And they're there because there is energy coming in through those lower centers. I'll follow his question. Moving further up the system, does the heart center do something similar with the lower, middle, and upper heart centers linking together? And every center that's on in your body, where whatever level it's able to handle frequencies, because these are valves, remember, they open relative to your capacity to handle the energy moving through. And if the valve is open more in the heart, for example, it will move energy down to the lower centers to expand the lower ones so you can build another glass. It affects your personality because you are energy, and that is the you that you are. You're just making it more structurally physical, emotional, mental at the physical level so that you can function in the world. And it moves all the way up to the top of the head. You're a single oneness. You're not only at the bottom. You're a oneness. Your brain and nervous system, our endocrine gland system, are affected all the time by any increase in flow. And then your personality goes through cycles of learning how to handle it. That's why life is so important here. You utilize life. You use it to help you to engage with and broaden out your relationship with who and how you are. So you're always constructing, even when you're kind of pushing towards being smaller. It's not something you have to do, but your vulnerability is pressing in on you not to engage broader and feel that vulnerability increasing. All of us notice vulnerability when we're dealing with something that's brand new to us. It's what we do, and then we use a few techniques, whatever they may be, to calm ourselves down and try and do something even if we can't. It's what we do as a personality. Don't put a scalpel in my hand to operate on the brain. I'm not very good at that. I'm not. I don't even know what a scalpel feels like, although I think I did pick one up one time. Maybe. But others have their way of doing things that might be much better than I. Scalpel's only one thing. God, one small little thing. Big if you need it, but small if you don't. If this happens to these 3 link circles, he's talking about the 3 lower centers. We call them lower centers because they're at the bottom of our butt. The gonad center and the root center, solar plexus. And then others call the upper centers, the brow, the crown, and the throat, or all the centers behind the neck. That's the second interaction. In the meantime, energy is being moving through the heart center, broadening it out. Every time a center above the diaphragm opens, it affects the ones below. I've heard other people have different beliefs than that. And I know that's true. But it still relates to the second glass. If you can perceive that those centers are opening more, it means you're building a second glass. If you can't, you're protecting the shot glass. Is it okay to do that? Absolutely. That's the nature of us. Don't negate that aspect. Broaden it out best you can. It's not an easy chore, otherwise everyone would be enlightened. Wouldn't that be kind of different? Well, I think it would, but wow. I'm not sure what that would look like, although assumptions can be made. We do that all the time. No doubt we would attempt to do that. Again, reading really interesting history is fascinating. If you've never been to the desert, you don't know what the desert's like, but you know it's sandy. So everything you know now, you anticipate what the desert would be like with. If you've never been on the ocean in a small craft, you know what the ocean must be like. Really deep, whole bunch of water, lots of wind, lots of currents. You can anticipate what you think it would be like, but you still haven't been on the ocean, and the ocean is not like that. The ocean is probably a slight bit more, the desert is a slight bit more, if you look at history, than what you anticipate it would be if you're right in the middle of it. You need the ability to survive it. We are where we are in our ocean of existence. It's neither good nor bad, it's where we are. We're attempting to build a vessel that can actually handle, with great respect, we're slowly watching the handling take place. We're not meant to be good at it. We're meant to slowly build it. Good means something in the eyes of the shot glass. Will anyone out there ever have a reaction to not doing well in spiritual growth? My answer, I think, would be absolutely. That's the shot glass routine. Ever had that happen? Absolutely. Understand it then when others have it happen, please. Because that's valuable. You're building knowledge. When it happens to you, understand it, you're building knowledge about others as well as yourself. Respect is valuable. A kind of humility related to learning is valuable. If we spoke no language, for example, if we spoke English, French, all other languages except Sumerian, old Sumerian language in the land of Ur, we would not understand their language. In the eyes of them, we would be not too bright. If we asked them to speak English, French, whatever, they would not understand us. So they couldn't understand how smart we were speaking English. Try it on this. Go back into the 19th century. If you don't know that every F is pretty well an S, then you're wondering why their spelling is so bad. Perhaps the same sense might be considered when you're looking from the level of the shot glass, like we all are, to some degree. Believing, learning information that others have gleaned. Finding it right because they did. Not having experience, but knowing they must be right. The experience, the reality, is different than what we anticipate. Don't be nervous about not getting it right. Don't devalue others. Please. It just makes thicker the shot glass. Try to understand from their perspective where they are, not in terms of the language they're using versus yours, but where they are in relationship to their experiential engagement with that flow that is helping us to learn beyond what we are willing to construct in our minds. We can only do what we can do. It would be interesting to consider, not devalue, and learn about us. Because we know learning about us is learning about many, many others. And we leave space inside for learning, and that grows. We want to know about other things. Things we're not interested in the shot glass. We want to go beyond into a system of oneness where we know that every day that glow, no matter how small, is expanding. And that is in us, you and I, that is relative to the higher state. And that is nothing but perception, a depth of understanding, and a relationship with the core, no matter how small. I wish you all a very good evening and a really enjoyable and growing 2018. Good night.